letting people in here. Hello, everyone that is joining us today. We'll just give a few minutes for folks to come into the webinar. So for those that are joining us, this is the Strongest Town Contest 2022 Championship Round, featuring representatives from Norwood, Ohio, and Jasper, Indiana. Just to review for everyone, here's this journey that we've been on. This contest has been going on for several weeks now. We started with 16 towns from all over the country, and we have slowly narrowed down to these two finalist communities, Norwood and Jasper, and we are very excited to be featuring those folks here in a conversation, and then we'll have voting opening for this final round of the contest to help us pick the strongest town in America. As people are coming in here, I'll just go through briefly what the format is today. In a minute, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Jay Stange, who's our content manager at Strong Towns and who's been running this whole contest. He will ask some questions and introduce our two guests, our representatives from Norwood and Jasper. And we'll also have time at the end for some audience questions. If anyone has those, you can feel free to submit them in the Q&A box at the bottom throughout the conversation, and we'll make some time for those at the end of this contest, at the end of this conversation as well. So Jay, I'll hand it over to you to introduce our guests and tell us more.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much for that. I really am glad that everybody can join us today for this live webinar. It's been a really amazing contest that started more than a month ago when we chose our original Sweet 16 from nominations that were submitted by contestants. And our audience and our Strong Towns members have voted by the thousands in this 7th annual contest to find, and I don't mean to contradict you, Rachel, but we're trying to find the strongest town on earth here today. And I think that many of our entrants came from North America, but I'm going to go ahead and claim our victor to this Friday as the strongest town on earth. This webinar is going to conclude in about an hour, and we'll be posting a recording of it on our YouTube channel. And there'll be a ballot that will be posted on our website at strongtowns.org that you can use to make your call for Strongest Town 2022. You're going to be making the final call, our audience members and our Strong Towns members. Voting is going to close this week at noon Central Time, Thursday, April 7th. So it opens now during the webinar, and we will close it noon Central Time on Thursday, the 7th of April. We'll be announcing our winner on April 8th. And it's going to be one of the two towns here that we are introducing you to today, if you haven't been with us throughout the contest: Norwood, Ohio, and Jasper, Indiana. There is a lot on the line in terms of pride here for this contest, but the winner is also going to take home a presentation from our Strong Towns founder and president, Charles Marone, that'll be scheduled later in the year. So here we have Norwood, Ohio, Jasper, Indiana, two fine communities that have emerged as our finalists, and they had to come through a very tough round of brackets, including the Heartland Rumble, the Small Town Smackdown, and numerous other challenges. But we would be happy, of course, to call any of the 16 towns that were our finalists the strongest town for 2022. They were all great entries, but there can be only one in this competition, and it has been fierce. In fact, one early round contest, which I called the Kentucky bracket, had featured Frankfort and Middlesboro, Kentucky, had amazing entries and enthusiastic voting on both sides that resulted in a perfect, exact 50% to 50% tie. And so we actually used our strongest towns member votes to break that one. And so anyway, people care a lot about this contest, and we're really glad that you're with us here today. Norwood, an Ohio town of porches and parks, has a fine school district and a community that counts on volunteer support, strong spirit to move it into the future. Norwood's had a series of strong wins, but faces a very tough contest this week from an amazingly devoted community in Jasper, Indiana, which came through around against a resurgent Yellow Springs, Ohio community by less than a 2% margin. So Jasper is tested, and it has a great deal of pride. Jasper leverages its assets, transforms those in need, and instills new energy through creative programs and collaborative leadership with its Impact Jasper community investment plan. And so with that, I'm very pleased today to welcome Alicia Locke of Norwood, Ohio, and Mayor Dean Vonderheide of Jasper, Indiana, who are representing their communities in the 2022 championship round of our Strongest Town contest. Welcome to both of you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's start today by asking Mayor Dean Vonderheide to tell us a little bit about Jasper, Indiana, and maybe Mayor, with an eye towards folks who may not know anything about Midwest towns.
Okay, we're a town located in southwestern Indiana, DuBois County. We are a regional hub for manufacturing in this area. We've got a population of 16,700 in the last census, had 11.2% growth from the previous census. So we were one of those small towns that did flourish during this time, compared to many others that, much of a struggle in population moving into the urban areas. So we've been growing. We've got a strong economy. We have a great emphasis on education. Our value system is one that we're very proud of. When people come to Jasper, they always comment about how clean the community is. They've never been to as clean a community as Jasper, Indiana. Well, I think that's built off our values, and those values are shared not only by residents that have been here their whole life, but those that move in from other areas of the world and the country. They come in sharing values with regard to religion and religious practices, with regard to work ethic, and highly competitive. So that's one of the things that we hang our hat on, is that we're a very competitive community and just really try to do the right things.
Thank you, Mayor. Alicia Locke, do I have this correct? Norwood and Jasper are less than 200 miles apart?
That's right.
How would you describe Norwood for someone who's never been there?
So Norwood is an enclave city within the city of Cincinnati. So a lot of people have heard of Cincinnati, maybe less have heard of Norwood, but we're right within it, pretty centrally located to Cincinnati's downtown. So we are a small town within a city. And when I first moved here and people would say that, I'm like, yeah, sure. I grew up in a town of 800 people surrounded by cornfields. So you're going to tell me you're a small town. But let me tell you, this town is a small town. We run into each other all the time. You are constantly seeing people out walking on the sidewalks, seeing people at the parks. There's a huge camaraderie, and I'm amazed at the free events that happen all over the place here. So it feels very inclusive, and we utilize our parks and our porches to really enjoy each other. And I would call it not just a strong town, but also a resilient town. Like many other Rust Belt cities, we relied heavily on industry. And one of our biggest employers and tax contributors was GM. And when they left in 1987, that took with them like 5,000 jobs. And so that was, it was a big blow to the city. And it's taken a long time to, recover from that. But I really think we're on the road to that. Our city government has learned a lot about not putting all their eggs in a basket. And so I think we've done a really good job at bringing in a multiple sphere of businesses and ways to get money, revenue. And we, so yeah, we've maintained our independence from Cincinnati, which it's been on the table whether or not that should be a thing. And I know that we're really glad that they have people who grew up here, and it's a very generational town, or multi-generational town too. So people who grew up here, it's not abnormal to see 3 or 4 generations still living here close by each other. We're a city of 3.1 miles, so pretty walkable. Our school district is walkable, and you could get from one end to the other. We're building a bike network, and we're working on building a bike network to make that even more traversable. But yeah, I think that's yeah, we've got small and large businesses, like I said, and we've done things like bring back the corner stores. We're working on bringing back the corner stores. Those are now allowed to be brought back. They don't have the parking minimums and stuff. So yeah, it's a city back on the rise.
That's amazing. For those of you who may have just tuned in, we're here with Alicia Locke of Norwood, Ohio, and Mayor Dean Vonderheide of Jasper, Indiana. And I wanted to remind our viewers that voting is going to be on our website, and it'll be posted soon. There is a link in the chat for those of you who'd like to get ready to vote. The video for this particular YouTube, the video for this webinar will be available on YouTube shortly also, and there's a link that's been provided here as well. So one of the things that I'm really curious about, I came to Strong Towns last year, late in the year, and I have in my background, I have community development. I have time as a high school math teacher. I've been a project manager building off-grid housing, and I also spent a bunch of time as a reporter in the media. And so I kind of, came into this basically by seeing some really interesting ideas that were presented through Facebook. Yeah, I'm old enough so that Facebook's where I get a lot of my information. Some folks, maybe a little younger, TikTok and Twitter, but my connection was Facebook. And it seemed like the more I delved into Strong Towns, the more I realized that this was an organization that was working to solve problems kind of at their heart, instead of working on symptoms or putting Band-Aids on problems. It was an organization that's really taking up how to make our communities stronger and more resilient, like at its heart and at its core. And so Alicia Locke, I'm gonna ask you if you could talk a little bit about, like me, how you found Strong Towns, and how did we get from that initial discovery to you being here today representing a finalist in the Strongest Town 2022 contest. I'm sure that's a journey that is a little bit different than mine, and maybe different from Mayor Vonderheide's as well.
Yeah, so I left my hometown to come to school in Cincinnati. So I went to UC, go Bearcats, and left for a little bit after I graduated, but really always loved cities. So I was drawn back, came back to Cincinnati, found Norwood. And as I was starting a family, my husband and I moved here together right after we got married. And one of a good friend of mine, like a mentor friend of mine, started delving into what makes Norwood tick and how we can help out. And that was always a passion of mine. That's why I moved to a city, or that's why I stayed in a city, was to be a part of, bringing that back up. And so it was, I don't exactly remember when I found Strong Towns, but I know that like those concepts were always big. I studied architecture for a little bit. I don't think it started back then, but that's when my love of cities kind of was nurtured. And anyway, I found Strong Towns, and I've been listening to the podcast on, and really enjoy it. Really love it feels very, because I didn't have any background in these types of careers, it felt very good that a citizen, a resident, can have these big impacts through these bottom-up revolutions. And then it just happened that it pretty much started in 2016, we think, with the flood that happened here, that residents were really banding together to make things happen. And that's probably when I started listening more. The CDC Norwood together, the Community Development Corporation developed, and I became a board member. I was kind of part of the process early on, and just became a board member. So then the president of the board, my mentor, recommended that I do this application, and I was thrilled to, because this is right in line with everything that I love and everything that we're doing here. So yeah, it's been really exciting. It's been so fun.
Great. Yeah, I think there's a lot of different pathways. I was talking with one of our contributors today, and I think sometimes for people who are new, Strong Towns kind of is like this many tentacled octopus that you're not exactly sure where all the tentacles reach or where they're all coming from, but the more time you spend with it, the more you see how it all connects. And Mayor Van der Heide, how about you? How did you and the folks in Jasper get interested in Strong Towns and get involved in and find yourself here as a finalist for the Strongest Town contest this year?
Well, was it really introduced to myself and staff in the city by a local resident who had been studying and keeping up with it on the direction. And he had been mentioning to me that he felt like there's some great values there that we should investigate and embrace. So he had applied and put Jasper in the contest. When I went back to see what Strong Towns was all about, it really was taking the package of what to us is continuous improvement. You know, when you talk about, you know, the environment and what impact you have on the environment, when it talks about responsibility for financial assets and not going in debt, you know, we are a very conservative community when it comes to our investments. And we have strong reserves. We don't like to go into debt for very long. We will go in for short periods of time, depending on the project, but with always a plan to pay that back. So, you know, when I looked at that and the bottom-up approach we've had for years, we've had a group called Redevelopable Jasper Action Coalition. And that group itself initiated many of the projects that were adopted by the city and embraced, and has really generated a lot of the development in the downtown area. So the bottoms up approach makes sense. It helps us. And we saw that when we developed the Impact Jasper Comprehensive Plan. They gave us our priorities for the long range, and right now we're just in execution mode. So we've knocked a couple of them out, and we're working on the others.
Yeah, it's a tough temptation to receive large grants from the Federal Highway Fund or from other organizations and other government arms that we found over and over again at Strong Towns that the money that's up front sometimes sets you up for a challenge in the future for maintaining infrastructure that you build in a short amount of time. So I'm glad. It's interesting to hear that you guys are keeping track of where you stand with your investments and the returns on those, and keeping it equal. It's one of the challenges that I think a lot of communities face. And so in this contest, we're hoping to show some of the success stories and some of the thinking that you all are using successfully to make sure that your towns prosper going into the future. I had a question about Jasper that's going to be for you, Mayor Van der Heide. Can you talk a little bit about one of the challenges that your community has overcome in the time that you've been living there? How did your community overcome a challenge, and what's the secret to doing so?
Well, one of the things for years, there was always the push to do something with our old library, you know, and the emphasis was by the library board was to build something separate and new. It was going to, you know, financially be a challenge for the community. It was going to raise taxes considerably. What we ended up doing was collaborating with the city and with the community arts, which is a department within the city. We have the Tim Clark Cultural Center now, which houses both the library and the arts. And so we were able to leverage and use common space in order to keep the total price down. So instead of two projects of approximately $10-12 million each, we were able to do it for much less. And then we believe in private-public partnerships. We when it comes to public financing, everything, if the community's driving it, we usually get community investments. People stand behind a project and they'll help fund it. And with the Tim Clark Cultural Center, we were able to raise over $6.5 million to put toward the project. And that means a lot when the community supports it. So we launched that in 2018. We opened the doors to the building in January of 2021. And in the first year of operations, we saw more traffic through that new cultural center than we did in the 11 previous years in the old locations. So we were able to move it into an area where it's accessible, it's walkable to the downtown, and really has become a major asset within the community.
Thank you, Mayor. Alicia, you had mentioned earlier in this conversation a couple of different setbacks that people faced in Northwood. I think you mentioned the GM plant closing in '87, and I think you might have mentioned a flood in 2016. Are those one of the difficulties that Norwood overcome that you would choose today, or is there another one that you guys have risen to the occasion about and come through? And can you tell us what it was that was your secret sauce for overcoming a setback in Norwood?
I think I would probably go with GM as being the biggest thing, and that had the longest reaching effects. And not just GM leaving, but a couple of others also. Another example of an industry that left that was really hard for the community was the U.S. Playing Card Factory. Bicycle cards relocated. And that one is an exciting change that is happening right now. That is being redeveloped into a multi-use campus for housing, brewery, market house, a lot of outdoor spaces that's going to be public. So it's really neat to see that happen. And I wonder if that would have happened if it hadn't been for what I think is really what got us out of all this, and it's the people of Norwood. I know it's really cliche to say that, especially in the strong towns, bottom up, it's the people, but that's why I love this so much, is because it really is it's the people who stuck with it all. And I think with that money that kind of slid us downhill, loss of money, I think there became a perception problem. It was a lot of people who were hurt and sad and going through a hard time. And then Cincinnati, who wasn't, all the way around us, wasn't being hit with that same hardship. And so we weren't the place to be for a little bit. And that was hard for the people who were so proud of it, but they stayed proud and they stayed with everything. And so many volunteer organizations remained strong and grew, and people, they didn't leave. There's still a lot of people who have stayed here for the long haul, and they have such a great housing stock and such good bones. We have good bones, a good network, a good pre-World War II layout, and again, it's that small town feel. So then new residents started coming in too, and just that vibrancy has come back. And so I'm grateful for the people who stuck it out and kept putting in their blood, sweat, and tears. And yeah, it's the people.
Thanks for that answer. I have one a question that I want to pull out from the current events in our world today, and I'm going to start. Alicia, with you, and then we'll go to Mayor von der Heide. This is something I've been thinking about a lot recently. Gas prices right now are approaching $7 a gallon in California. And here in Connecticut, where I live, they're getting close to $5 a gallon. And we have a lot of communities here that rely on automobiles and rely on getting to work and getting to school and getting to the things that we do, of course, by driving. And a lot of our commuters in Connecticut are, single occupant vehicle drivers. And we had recently our state legislature made passed actually a gas tax holiday in order to reduce the cost for what people are experiencing at the pump right now. And I think that this is one of those questions that really speaks to how how your town is organized and how you get in and out of there. And I'm wondering if you, Alicia, can start us off by talking a little bit about how higher gas prices are affecting residents in Norwood. What are the conversations that people are having there right now about alternatives and about the gas prices that are high right now and how it's affecting their lives?
I would say that we're one of the places that e-bikes are being talked about a lot more often. And we're fortunate to be surrounded by Cincinnati, who has, they're working on the bike networks that they are doing. And of course, a lot of us, work and do some things in Cincinnati as well. And there's a bike trail that goes right past, right across the border of Norwood. And we're talking a lot about how you especially make it easier for kids, for teens and students to be able to bike safely, to be able to use that as a recreation. We already have a strong system of sports leagues, and our rec center just reopened up, which was a really cool strategic win for the city, who took an old YMCA building, bought it for $1 and has put some effort into it. A lot of volunteer effort has gone into that, and it's doing a really good job listening to what residents want and maybe doing some things that are unconventional for a rec center to offer, again, with that park programming. So I think we're building up the ability to do a lot more things here. And I think a smaller group of residents, but a growing number of residents, are talking more about what bike safety can look like. And then of course, with Cincinnati also doing that, then that just opens up a lot more doors and is making it a good area for that. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. What more can we do to stay here and bike more safely?
Alicia, a quick follow-up. How many people in Norwood commute by car into Cincinnati to work?
It's probably a lot. It's probably a decent number. I know that we have a lot of businesses here also, and there's a lot of work from home, of course. So I'm really terrible with numbers, unfortunately. So I don't have a good guess at that. But anecdotally, in my sphere, there's a decent. I wish I knew. A lot of work from home right now, so that's helping.
Are people complaining about gas prices to you? I mean, when you see them on the street, are they like, Alicia, I just spent $100 filling up my gas tank. I can't even believe it. What are we going to do about this? You're not hearing that? I
don't hear that as much. There's a lot of work from home happening around, and we do have a lot of employers here. So I'm not hearing, the people I'm thinking of that I hear mostly about gas prices are not in Norwood. So.
Yeah. Got it. All right, Mayor Vonderheide, how about you? You're the mayor of a tight-knit community. Are people coming to your office and with pitchforks and demanding some kind of an answer to the high gas prices they're experiencing in Jasper, Indiana?
Well, some people do. Some people think it's my fault, so and what's the mayor going to do about it? And we're similar to Norwood, and the fact that we had adopted a multimodal transportation plan, which took into account within the city both bicycle and pedestrian movement, as well as any public transportation routes that might exist in the future. With being an industrial hub, a regional community, our population will go from 16,700 to over 24,000 employees in this community during the day. And so people are driving in, and they're sharing rides. There's a lot of ride share going on in order for them to come to work from these surrounding counties. That's important. Our pricing right now is running about $4.08 a gallon, so we're not as dire straits as some other areas of the country, but that's still a lot, and it is having an impact on our residents. It's having an impact on employees that are coming here for their employment needs. I hear it.
You know, that's interesting. I thought I picked up in your comments that your community in Jasper actually has people coming to your community for work instead of,
That's right.
you know, departing from your community and going to, you know, places in larger communities. I think Evansville is close by. How far away is Indianapolis from?
It's about 2 hours and 15 minutes. Bloomington's about an hour, Evansville an hour, Owensboro, Kentucky's an hour.
Yep.
You know, so you know, we're fairly close to these larger communities, and we get, a matter of fact, we've got people that are making the drive from Illinois to Jasper, Indiana to go to work. And the good thing is nowadays that you know, we're a fully wired internet fiber community, and it's attractive then for people to come here and live and work. That's, our community's come a long way, and it comes from those strategic investments. We partnered with a company out of Bloomington to provide fiber to every household in the city of Jasper.
Mm-hmm.
So
interesting. Yeah, my wife's cousins live in kind of like Western Massachusetts, and you know, a lot of those communities are still to this day not served by any fiber infrastructure, and so it's been, you know, it's difficult for them to take advantage of the opportunity that both of you are describing in your communities. I think it's a challenge in the recent infrastructure bill that was signed by the president and approved after a lot of debate by Congress. There's a chunk of money in there that talks about infrastructure in the form of cable, and in terms of bringing cable into our communities, which I think is going to be, you know, an important infrastructure asset as opposed to building new highways. I think it's one way that we can avoid vehicle miles traveled. So I'm glad to hear both your communities are working on that. I'm gonna go on to the next question here. Mayor Vonderheid, I still have you up. Can you share with us something that happened with your team? And you know, Mayor Vonderheid has a very dedicated team on this contest. We had a lot of great folks who participated. But Mayor Vonderheid, is there anything in particular that occurred to you or your team during this contest that you realized you didn't know about your own community? Was there a surprise in looking at it through the lens of this contest? Something that you guys realized that maybe you hadn't considered before?
Well, I think more than anything, we took it for granted. You know, when we look at it, I mentioned, you know, we're a community of a lot of industry, so continuous improvement is something that's, you know, it's in our verbiage, it's in our conversation on a daily basis. Whether it's, we have a hospital that had earned the Baldrige Award for quality, which is a very difficult award to win, and over international standards. We have companies that constantly are deploying new quality systems, using systems in order to ensure their productivity, their quality to their customers is right. I think we just took that for granted. And when we talk about the bottom-up approach, you know, we started, when I became mayor, we started a youth council, Mayor's Youth Leadership Council. We started an ecumenical council of all the church leadership here in the area, so that we could get feedback on what are they seeing, what are the needs of the community that sometimes go unnoticed. And so some of those things that we were grasping on were emphasized here, and I think we just took it for granted that maybe other communities are doing the same thing. Yeah. But you know, our mentality of continuous improvement really drives that.
Alicia, how about you and your team in the course of this contest? Did you all run across or maybe encounter something that you didn't know about your own community in looking at in sort of analyzing yourselves and preparing for this contest? And anything pop out?
So I've had a lot of people working with me, even though I was the initial applicant. So I do want to say that there's many people who have been really supportive, helping me to, write the captions. Couldn't have done it without you, Hillary. And just so many people supporting and talking to and helping me prepare for these interviews. So in one of the preparations for the last interview, we were talking to somebody who was on the planning board or the zoning board back in like 2008 when the housing crisis was happening. And of course, we're still kind of reeling from losing the factories. That's when we were also losing the playing card factory. And so we learned about a specific instance where that group of people was forward thinking enough to use that shakeup to put in better zoning ordinances to protect the street fronts, and to protect the neighborhoods. And I believe that's when the corner store ordinance was passed and the parking minimums were taken away. So I was really proud to learn that when we were all really nervous about what was going to be happening, they weren't throwing up their hands. Of course, they'd already been through the GM crisis, so they're already showing resilience. And so I think it was easier for them to, they're already in the mental state to fight for keeping ourselves above water and keeping us good. So I was not aware of all the details of that. And I also learned that the playing card factory left so recently. I thought that it had been a vacant property for a lot longer than that. So kind of learning how fast properties can deteriorate was sobering, and because they've had a lot of work fixing that up. So it's lit a fire under, it's lit more of a fire under me. And I know already people are working on trying to save some of the old buildings that are right now not occupied. So hopefully we can keep doing that.
I'm asking some questions right now, but I wanted to invite our audience to also post questions in the Q&A. Rachel's monitoring that spot, and if you have something that you want to ask Alicia Locke of Norwood, Ohio, or Mayor Vonderheide of Jasper, Indiana, please post it in the Q&A, and we will get to that question at the end of this webinar. I want to change up the perspective of the question asking right now, and I'm going to open it up to the two of you. Alicia, we'll start with you. And I want to let you both know that we, of course, believe that all the towns in our Sweet 16 were amazing entries with great stories to tell and great communities. I'm wondering, Alicia, if you have a question or a comment that you'd like to share with us about your championship round competitor. Have you been to Jasper, Indiana? And is there a question or a comment that you'd like to make for Mayor Vonderheide today?
I haven't. I considered driving up yesterday, or down. I considered driving there yesterday, but I didn't do that. So you guys seem wonderful. I loved reading through your entries and listening to the interview that your fabulous planner did. And so I took some notes. I won't ask you all the questions because I'm supposed to ask you one. But I think the one that sticks out to me the most, that I think we can, that I'm really interested in learning from you, is about how you are occupying storefronts with and building up. She referred to building up small businesses and getting them into those storefronts. And kind of what's the process of, how have you been able to fill your storefronts and keep them occupied?
Well, one of the things I realized is when I became mayor is it really didn't have a focus on that. And we were losing our downtown storefronts to attorneys and title companies, which, really doesn't drive a lot of activity in the downtown area. So we felt like we needed to do something different. We'd been members of Main Street program for a number of years, but we really didn't take it to heart. And we relaunched that program with a focus on the downtown. We called it the Heart of Jasper. It's our Main Street program. We hired a director. It's a part-time basis, and we have a board set up. And they have embraced the downtown area as something that we want to drive for a great experience for anyone that comes to Jasper. So you were really after the experience, whether it's shopping or if it's just in visitation, eating, dining. You know, we want people to have a great experience when they come to town. So the Heart of Jasper has been critical, played a critical role in this filling the storefronts. We started the facade grant program, and the first year, the facade grant program, I gave it some seed money to get it going, and they were able to put it toward a 50-50 share for any storefront that would make any improvements there. And then throughout the year, we actually have this year launched a new business incentive. So if you start up in the downtown heart of Jasper, there's some grants that are available for new businesses. And we've had a lot of interest. Many of the people that received the grants and the facades and made those improvements, they're noticeable. And others that have invested in the area are now wanting to do the same thing. And some of them aren't waiting for the grants. Some are saying, I just got to keep up. You know, it's been years since I've done anything with the building, and I'm going to do that. A lot of this is prompted the fact that we have launched a downtown revitalization, and it's an infrastructure revitalization. We're replacing all our water lines, our stormwater drainage systems, all our sidewalks, the road. It will all be redone, because when you go in to do this, you're tearing them up. And when you put them back in place, you want to put them back in better shape than they were, previously. So that program is just launched. As a matter of fact, we're having our pre-construction meeting next week and hope to do a notice to proceed so that the construction can get underway. It's about a 15-month end date. So we'll go through an entire season of this construction going on down here. And while we're doing that, some of these store owners are saying, now's the time I've got to do my thing, because we're going to have a beautiful downtown area, and they don't want to be the sore spot, out here. They want to be the one that's right there with it up to times. So it's been really encouraging, and I appreciate all the investments that have been made.
Sounds like you're taking advantage of that competitive spirit in Jasper.
Yeah, it is.
I love how similar, all the research I've been doing about Jasper, it feels like you're doing so many things that, we're doing and that are applicable to us. I love being in this contest with you guys.
Mayor Vonderheide, how about you? Have you been to Norwood? Less than 200 miles.
I might have been,
yeah,
but no, I never spent any time in Norwood.
You'd have to fight your way through Cincinnati to get there, right?
Yeah.
What is something that you might want to know about Norwood and your fine competitor here?
Well, one of the things I noted was the Gems of the Community Award. That recognition of residents by the community, I think that's wonderful. I'd love to know more about the process you go through and the criteria for selection.
That was amazing. It was our inaugural one, and it's, hopefully it'll be annual. That's the plan. And we've just put it out all over the place, flyers and Facebook. We let anybody nominate a doer in Norwood, and it was really very open to, what you were appreciative of, which is so great. We weren't using the term bottom-up revolution, but that's what we were asking for, is who are the bottom-up revolutionists in Norwood. And the scope of people we got were so fun. People who volunteer regularly with the marching band, donating their time and money for the food to feed them all. We had activists in an area that has a lot of flooding, and she's doing a lot of work to make sure that doesn't get forgotten and gets attention. Our mayor, his mom won. He didn't nominate her, she won outright from someone else. And she does a lot of volunteering in the community. So it's great to see her. And she's one of the people who've done it, she raised her children here and her grandchildren were raised here. So it was cool to see her honored. one of our legacy winners. Oh, our podcaster. We have a Norwood podcast, Move Norwood Forward. He was honored, a 10-year-old with her newspaper. So it was really fun. And I'm not even, there were 18 of them. I'm not saying them all, but it was, and that being in that room together, it was a recently redone, it used to be a bank and now it's an event center. And that bank it's getting to be a little bit of an eyesore right on the corner of our main street next to the school complexes. And now it's gorgeous. So it was really fun that we got to be able to be in there. They still have the vault up in beautiful. And we got to just all be in that room celebrating. And it was so great. We've been working so hard to make things happen and problem solving. And this wasn't about that. It wasn't about problem solving. We just were celebrating, and the energy in the room, of course, it was, in February, so it was cold and rainy, and yeah, we're very excited. We're very excited to have been able to do that. So yeah, anybody did it.
It sounds like a great program. Congratulations.
It's lovely. Highly recommend it.
I heard in there that,
and it was free. It was for everybody. Anybody could come to it also, which is, another special thing that we could all partake in. And local businesses provided the food and worked out deals with the food. And we had our local baker give us some for cheesecakes and desserts. It was lovely. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. It was great.
I heard in there that there was a 10-year-old newspaper reporter that was given an award. 10-year-olds can ask some pretty hard-nosed questions. Those are tough reporters to get past. And we do have some questions that have been coming in our question and answer period that we're going to get to here in just a second. I wanted to just ask really quickly for like maybe a less than 30-second response. I'm just curious. I'm new to the Strongest Town contest, like many of you, and I noticed that in the last 7 years we've been doing this contest, many of the towns that have ended up being the champion are from the Midwest. So here, 30 seconds or less, what is it that puts about the Midwest that seems to put the strong in towns? Mayor Vonderheide, can you start off with that one?
I'll go back to what I mentioned about our community. I think it's the values and competitiveness. The Midwest is highly competitive. It's been a melting pot of all types of cultures that have moved into the Midwest and adopted that as home. So, and that's how I would define it. And I think what I also hear is that we are friendly. Midwesterners are friendly people.
Alicia, what is it about the Midwest that seems to put the strong in towns?
Friendly was one of the ones I was going to say. We work together. There's teamwork. We're a bunch of farmers and people who've done that sort of thing. We know that we need to have each other and each other's backs, and we have that resilience. I think that kind of living off the land, you have to be willing to help each other out, and you have to be able to get past a hard season. So that's what I would say.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, let's take a few of the questions from the audience members. Mary asked, can both of you elaborate on the relationship between city government and your residents? I think that is an excellent question. I know it came up in some previous rounds of the contest, but let's, Alicia, could you tell us a little bit about how you see the relationship between city government and residents in Norwood?
I would love to, because I'm really proud of how our representatives work with our city. 3.1 square miles, we all live within this. You are not going to not run into your neighbors and your city council person. So, and you're also not going to have, too many people vying for their attention. So they are responsive to us, our school board, our city council, our administration. Like I said, our mayor grew up here. He raised his family here. He cares about our quality of life because it's his quality of life. So I really, you see him at every event. You see just all of them are there. They're participating with us. They want the best for us. And they show up at volunteering events. Got a picture of a city council person and a mayor. They were in an election year, different sides of the aisle, which is also what I love. At a small town, you can work across the aisle because you have to work across the aisle. So I have a picture of them planting a tree together on the bike trail. Just a very in my mind, I took that picture and I was just so proud of it because that just sums up, where we're going. And I think at times the relationship was maybe a little more intense. Like you said, Mayor, people blaming you about gas prices, people blaming about GM leaving, or I don't exactly know because this was before my time, but it is it is a good relationship, and they are doing great. Oh, one more thing. They're also really diverse. We've got like married people, not married people. We've got people who are long-term residents here. So I really appreciate that. There's a lot of different viewpoints in our city council right now.
Awesome. Mayor Vonderheide, what do you see as the relationship between residents and city government in your community?
Well, I think it's a very positive relationship. You know, we live, work, play. We worship together. It's not something that we run away from. We're always accessible. I have a coffee with the mayor. Anyone's invited to come. And, you know, we've got open council meetings. It's a day-to-day ongoing, we're all in this together. And I think we define community. A community is everyone coming together. And I think that's really what it is. It doesn't matter whether you're government or not, in a government role, you're representing these people and their perspectives. The more perspectives you have, the stronger it is. You know, the more diverse those perspectives, the greater the solution. So, you know, I think that's the strength of the community.
Excellent. This question comes from Matthias, who asks, as small towns, how are you linked outside of small town America? What makes you attractive for outsiders to move there? Mayor Vonderheide, what do you think?
Well, we have a history of multinational immigration. We have multinational and international companies, and their talent comes from all over the world. So in the last 20 years, we've seen an influx of many cultures. I think our Mayor's Youth Council, the mural we did had 15 different languages represented as primary languages at our high school that said, welcome to Jasper, welcome. You know, and that's just kind of how we embrace things.
And Alicia, what about you? Yeah, as a small town, why are you attractive to other people outside of your small town?
So again,
you guys are in a unique position. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about Norwood without talking about Cincinnati. So we've got the University of Xavier University in Norwood. And also is partly in Cincinnati. And then we've got the University of Cincinnati. We've got Children's Hospital in Cincinnati. And then we've got several medical buildings within Norwood and Cincinnati. So there's a lot of businesses, and I know especially like the university and the hospital bring a lot of people. And so a lot of things might bring you to Cincinnati mostly. But then what brings you to Norwood is that small town feel because of that walkable district, the knowing your neighbors, knowing who your kids are going to school with, knowing that the teachers are familiar with everybody. And yeah, so I think the parks, I mean, we have a 3-mile radius and we have 13 parks and then the bike trail. And so I think people are really liking the feel here and the ability to influence government or have a relationship with government that can be influential. So I think that's what brought me.
Yeah, and then kind of a related question, Youngbo asked, what are relations like with, neighboring communities and sort of the region as a whole that you both are, that you each are in? Alicia, you already started to touch on that, but yeah, like what's the relation with the larger region?
I think it's a good relationship. Cincinnati has very strong neighborhoods. And so sometimes Norwood doesn't look any different than like the Norwood Pride doesn't look any different than the neighbors' Pride. Until moving here, I didn't realize that Norwood was its own city. I just thought it was a neighborhood with its own identity because a lot of them do. So it all meshes in and out very easily of what is what, and it's a good relationship. And I think that's also something that's been improving in recent years, reaching out more to the neighboring, blending those lines a little bit more. I think that's happening. It's definitely happening, and I think it's even improving. So.
And Mayor Vonderheide, what is the relationship like with the neighboring communities where you are in the region as a whole?
Well, relationship's very positive. We work closely with the communities here within our county. We work within Radius, Indiana, which is a subset of 7 counties that work together collaboratively around the economic development. We have ROI, which is Regional Opportunities Initiative, which is even a larger group that we collaborate on major projects for the area and economic development as well. Locally, I think what we end up doing is a lot of our social needs, health needs, healthcare needs, those things, educational needs are done collaboratively within the region, with Jasper being the hub again. So a lot of that takes place. We do have, we have a sister city. I don't know if Norwood does or not, but our sister city is in Germany because we had a lot of German immigrants that came in, and we have a monthly call with the Burgermeister of Boffenweiler, and we talk about exchange programs and what we can do. This year we had an artist exchange. So we're always collaborating, and what's good for Jasper is good for the county, is good for the region. What's good for the region is good for us, you know, so that's the way we look at it.
Very good. I think this will probably be our last question here. Eve is asking, what are parenting programs in your community? And I would just expand that a little bit generally to, you know, how does your community support families and parents? Alicia, let's start with you. I know you are a parent with young kids.
Yes, I am a parent with young kids. We have the Hippie program, which pairs you with somebody who helps you out. So we start our supports prenatal, really. So we have oh boy, I'm going to get the names wrong. I think it's Every Child Succeeds and Hippie. And so, and we have, so there's a monthly thing at the, we have a weekly thing with them at the library where they help parents and caregivers to work with the kids to develop skills and reading and saying things to you that you might not even realize. So we have an economically diverse community. So that's one of the things that's like, how do you succeed and how do you get these kids to succeed? You can't start just in preschool. So they start them early. They've got good programs for that. Glenna Edwards at our school is so wonderful and doing so much. And the school system in general is. And then we've got avenues for success once they get bigger, older. And we have a program, ASAP Norwood is Addictive Substance Abuse Prevention, and that is led by teens. PIP stands for something, and the kids are working together with ASAP to make things happening there. So that's more of how they're working with kids, but you know, that's a support for us parents. So the PTAs and the after-school community is really great to find the support. They're bringing in, or they've brought in a health point system, a medical system, so that you can get dental work and counseling right within the school, which makes it really easy for parents. We also have a really affordable preschool on a sliding scale that's open to everyone, which is really nice. So it's not, you know, it's not just need-based, it's open to everyone, every resident. It's a Norwood thing. And it's open to residents. And that's a great experience, a great start into the school system, and a great way to meet people. And through listening to what parents have wanted, they now have a Montessori option. So we have the 3 local elementary schools, and then they just opened they've always had Montessori preschool for a while. And now hearing that parents would like that to continue, the Montessori program is now adding grades. So sorry, that's a roundabout way. It's largely in our school system and our library, but there are great supports for parents.
Wonderful. And Mayor Vonderheide, how do you in your community support parents and families?
Well, very similar. I think the key players are the schools and some of the programs that are offered either before school or after school, and then also the meetings with the parents, the guidance that they receive. The hospital, healthcare, Memorial Hospital and healthcare is definitely a major source for any kind of advocacy with parenting. And then I'd say the schools, the hospital, and then there are other social services that are available. Childcare, preschool childcare. I mean, there's a lot. The YMCA is here in the area and is running programs at our school systems now. So that's not an entire list. I'm not probably as familiar with them, seeing that I'm now a grandparent rather than in the immediate parenting phase.
Yeah,
You know,
thanks so much.
Rachel, I think that's probably where we're going to leave it for the afternoon. We have two amazing finalists here for the Strongest Town 2022 contest, and I want to thank you, Alicia Locke, and I want to thank you, Mayor Dean Vonderheide from Jasper, Indiana, and Alicia Locke from Norwood, Ohio. My best to you both. Thank you so much for enriching our contest with your entries and with your time and your heart. And I wish you both the best here. As voting opens, there's a link in the chat for those of you who don't know where to go to vote, but please get your votes in. Voting closes Thursday at noon Central Time, April 7th. Rachel Quednow, thank you so much for emceeing today.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here. Good luck to our two finalist towns.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. This is